Hello, hello, hello again. So today is November the 15th. It's my daughter's birthday today. Yeah, I was just thinking that whenever I was typing in the date. We are in the month of November, and the month of November is Diabetes Awareness Month. And so one of the things I really love this month because it really is very, very precious to me. Is I have a lot of family members that have had diabetes, and so that's kind of it's always interesting to me because I want to learn more about it. Because you always want to, especially in what we do, you always want to learn something because it's interesting, but also so you can help other people, right? But when we're talking about diabetes, I want to make sure that people understand. From the American Diabetes Association, there's two types. So there's type 2, and type 2 is totally avoidable as well as curable. There are some that believe that it is not avoidable or curable because they believe that it's genetic and so you're bound to get it. So we'll get to that here in a few minutes. And then there's type 1, and type 1 is really should be in a category all by itself. It's an autoimmune issue. And the reason that they put them in the same category is because they both deal with the pancreas, and the pancreas shutting down the insulin aspect and messing up the blood sugar. And so that's why they're in that same category. Although I have multiple friends and also know multiple children that have type 1, I can tell you it really is not the same thing. It can be subtly so different and also both can be life-threatening. Type 1 can be so much more life-threatening, so much quicker than type 2 can be. For the sake of, I don't know, people always say for the sake of argument, really just for the sake of time and also limited education. Okay, I'm going to just say that we really are only going to go into type 2. We're not going to really talk about type 1 this time around. At some point when we start talking about autoimmune issues and things like that, we may bring that up. But in this month, when we're giving education, we're only talking about type 2 because we know from our standpoint, that's something that we can help you to empower you to move forward and get better with it. So the thing that we want to really start with in this month of November is about how type 2 comes about. And I want to just throw this out. First of all, I want to say again that we don't treat, diagnose, or prescribe. That's not where we're coming through this. We really want to empower you with education. We want to empower you to become your own health advocate. We want to encourage you in all of those ways so that really you can walk in wellness in a different way. And understand too that when you look at someone and you're talking about wellness or they're talking about wellness, that you're only looking at the page that you see in front of you, right? If you look at somebody's life as being a book, you didn't read the whole book. Mm-hmm. And I would even say that if you were there for all the book, you still were not there for all the pages, right? So some of those pages you might have missed because you weren't there presently, or you might have missed because some of those pages are emotional or some of those pages are mental. And so you really can't judge a book by its cover or the inside pages that you're reading in front of you. So I say that because what we're going to talk about as far as with diabetes is we're going to talk about genetics and we're going to talk about epigenetics, and that's where we're going to start. And this conversation, oh my gosh, could go on forever. And I'll say the reason that Carrie and I started talking about it from this perspective is because one of the things that I said to her was I've been in practice for about 7 years now. And one of the things that I have found from a personal standpoint, I don't have diabetes and nor am I a pre-diabetic, but from a personal standpoint of people that I know and from clients that I know that have had diabetes, most often, not every time, okay? So I'm not saying it's a black and white thing, but most of the time they will say, well, everybody in my family has this, or my family's prone to that. So of course I'm bound to have it. But if you trace their ancestry back hundreds of years ago, nobody had it. The argument could be, well, did we actually have the diabetes a diagnosis then? But they didn't have you don't know that they had any issues. Nobody ever brought it up. What I see a lot of, and this is where we bringing in epigenetics, is that it seems in a lot of these families to have started with children that are now adults in their late 80s or in their 90s. And that was that they grew up in the Depression. And in the Depression, they were lacking food. It's called the Depression for a reason, right? So it affected everyone. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Both my parents grew up in the Depression. They're not here any longer to talk about this, but my mother told us lots and lots of stories about the Depression. So it's called the Depression for a reason. What's interesting is when in natural health, we talk about an issue, a physical issue, and you'll often hear us say one thing doesn't cause one thing because we're not one thing. When we're talking about that, one of the things that the emotional connection to diabetes is missing the sweetness of life. And if that started in their family in the Depression era, that's understandable, right? So last week, Carrie started talking about hormones and started talking about a blueprint of something and then how this affects us. So Carrie, why don't you kind of pick up there and start talking about how that affects the hormones and then how it could possibly lead into an illness like this.
Yeah, so everyone typically knows that we have our genes that make us who we are, that we look the way we look, our eye color, our hair, our skin color, because of our genes. And then someone would say that illness is, I'm predisposed, as Shireen said, I'm predisposed to XYZ illness because it runs in my family, right? And there's a difference between our DNA, our genetic code has like a perhaps even, yes, there's a code in there for a predisposition towards an illness. But then the question becomes what actually switches that gene on in order for that to be expressed. So in the case of like type 2 diabetes, people are not born with it. They, for whatever reason, they get older and it's something that then expresses itself. Well, what happened that caused their body to be like, okay, now we need to have diabetes? And part of it is like back, as we were discovering DNA and the genes and how everything worked, there was a lot like we figured out exactly how we get all of our physical characteristics from our parents. But there was a lot of extra stuff in the DNA that people were like, we don't know what this is. It appears to be superfluous. We have no idea. Mm-hmm. And then science, in the past couple decades, we've learned about epigenetics and how like our environment can impact our gene expression. And when I say environment, I'm talking about, as Shireen said, our emotions, toxins, our nutrition, our exercise, so where we choose to live. All of these things kind of go in there and into our DNA, and it tells our DNA how to express. And it kind of flips switches, if you will. So in the case of type 2 diabetes, it's like something has gone in there, and for whatever reason, that gene that you have that predisposes you towards this illness has been, it has been flipped on, and we need to express it for whatever reason.
Right. And that's, I want to make 2 points here. And that's one, like going back to even talking about type 1, is that nobody's born with type 1. They develop it. And I mean, I know someone that was, that got it at age 4 or age 5, something around there. And now I'm not saying that for sure that this is what happened. I'm just saying that perhaps this could be something that could happen. And this is kind of the argument of this topic. And I am using my words very carefully so we don't get blocked somewhere and also get hate mail and all that kind of stuff. But if we do have this blueprint of how our body is predisposed to something, and then this toxin comes in at a specific age that everybody gets, then if your blueprint says that you could get this issue or this autoimmune issue or this illness, then that's the toxin that's going to turn it on. And so that's what in type 1 that we see a lot of as a possibility, is that at age 18 months and then at age 3 or age 5, maybe it's not turned on at age 18 months. Maybe it's not turned on at age 3, but then that third time they get it at age 5 years old, then it ends up turning on that blueprint DNA that says now they have type 1. And so is it something that you can say, well, if you get this, then you are going to get this? No. It's really about how the genetics work and how the toxins work together, that some people have that and some people don't. I'm very allergic to bananas. Everybody in my family can eat bananas. Now, I would say that this seems like, well, no, you can't even compare that, because do I have a blueprint that says that I am allergic to bananas? Most likely not. Most likely it's because my liver, because of other illnesses that happened, and that's what got me into the natural health field. And so my body has not healed that part in the liver so that it's not giving an overaction to the antihistamine. But it's still the same aspect of it, is like, is my blueprint going to be more overreactive to a piece of sugar versus what my husband does? My husband can eat sugar and, stays this big and doesn't have an issue. I eat sugar and it gives me a headache, and I know that I don't like it. So I try not to eat it. Doesn't mean I don't. It means I don't like to eat that because I know what it does in my body. And so that epigenetics can be a major factor. And so what kinds of things besides toxins can cause that epigenetic flip of that switch? Carrie, what do you think?
I mean, a big one that we're seeing today is again, goes back to nutrition and eating, like specifically for, type 2 diabetes, is sugar. But all of our nutrition, and when you stop and think about the food, and even the water that we drink and the air that we breathe, like, we're putting a lot of stuff into our bodies that doesn't contain like the information or the enzymes or the vitamins or the high quality nutrients that our bodies need in order to faithfully express the optimal health.
Right. And last week we talked about how sometimes those toxins for children can come out as autism, or it can come out as other diseases or illnesses and things like that. But emotions have a huge part of that too. And so it's emotions are such a funny thing, because really what controls emotions are two things: either our hormones or our thoughts. Our emotions, our thoughts is what controls emotions. So control your thoughts and you can control your emotions. Control those hormones, those darn hormones, then you can control your emotions. And so some people will say that's not possible. Well, I would say that, first of all, and this is not necessarily a spiritual lesson, but on the thought aspect of it, how wise is it from the Bible to say, take every thought captive and make it be obedient unto him, because he knows what we want for ourselves. So somebody can grow up in a childhood that is very traumatic driven and then have all kinds of other illnesses later on. And the same two people, brother and sister, can grow up in the same home, and one will have this illness and one will not. Well, why is that? Are they growing up in the same home? And we say yes. A very wise woman said to me one time when I was talking about my own children, I was exasperated about something that had happened to them, and or something they had done. I really don't remember what specifically it was at the moment, nor would I tell you if I did. But I was talking to her, and she's like in her 80s. And I said, I don't get it. They both were raised the same way in the same home. And she said, no, they weren't. And I said, yes, they were. I mean, I was there. I'm their mother. They have the same father. We taught them both the same thing. And she said, no. She said, your oldest came into your family and made you and your husband a family. That person came in that had no siblings. That child's the oldest, and they came into two people that had never been parents before. Okay. Now, the second one came in and you already had things that were established. And so, and you've learned some things. So that person came in as the youngest. And so they have a different perspective of that too. And so, and already you did some things that were different. They also happen to be different sexes. So while we didn't try not to treat them differently, you are going to treat them differently. You just, and Carrie's from a family of all girls, and you can, and Carrie's a twin, and you still were treated differently, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so you can say that your family or your family outcome is not going to affect, or is going to affect your epigenetics the same exact way, but that's not true. It is just not true, because you're going to have, even as a twin, you're still going to have a different perspective on things, right? And so it's really interesting how that can happen. One person sees something as, bad, another person sees something as good. It reminds me of a joke that I'm going to tell. It's about a little boy, two little boys that, at Christmas time, they're so excited about what they're getting for Christmas. And there's this one little boy that he's just happy about everything, and just sees the joy in everything, happy about everything, happy go lucky, all that. And this other child, you can never please him for anything. And so the parents decide, to the child that can never be pleased, they're going to give him a brand new bicycle, has a bell, has all the things, they're so excited to give this child that. And for the other child, they're going to just see how this child decides to look at things. And they just give him a bucket of horse poop. And so they both open their gifts on Christmas Day. And the boy that opens the bicycle is like, well, why did you get that color? How come it has this? And why does it have that seed on it? And just complains and complains and complains. And they look over, and the other child is looking around and looking outside and looking all over. And they say, son, what are you doing? And he says, I know this poop came from somewhere, so I'm looking for the horse. And so they're in the same family, but they have a different perspective. They may have some of the same DNA because they came from the same parents, right? So you could say they have the exact same DNA, but that's the other thing, is that they don't have the same spirit. They don't have the same spirit. And so one thing can affect them in a different way. Maybe they were born differently. Maybe they were born at a different month or a different part of time of year. And I'm not talking about astrology in that. I'm talking about just how every single aspect of everything affects how we look at something. So what does that have to do with diabetes? Is that the epigenetics portion of that really makes an impact on the sweetness of life. Of those two boys, which one are you going to say has literally missed the sweetness of life? The one that is really going to be more negative, right? Now, that's not to say that everybody that has diabetes is a negative person. My mother had diabetes, and she was one of the kindest and sweetest and most upbeat people ever. Now, did she have a lot of other things? Yeah, because she was brought up in the Depression, and she had her own personal things that lots of, people go through. And so some of that affected her as well. As we go through the month, we're going to talk more about specifics about diabetes, things to look for, why it's so important. And Carrie and I both know people that they know they have a blood sugar issue. They know they have high blood sugar issues, and they don't check it, and they don't get medication for it, nor do they even take any kind of supplement to try to bring it low, nor do they even watch what they eat, because they just want to convince themselves they really don't have it. And that is really and truly a very poor thing to do. And I will just address that aspect of it, because when you ignore the blood sugar issues being so high, it thickens your blood. And when it thickens your blood, then that's going to cause a vascular and a cardiovascular issue. So it ends up making your arteries harder. It also makes your arteries and your veins thinner. So like the passageway, like this is a pin, it would, if this is how thick or, how wide, I should say, or that diameter of what it's supposed to be. Actually, and I'll show you this, like This is just a knob that I have on that fell off of a shelf. So if your veins and arteries are supposed to be that thick, which they're not, but if they were supposed to be that thick, and you started eating a lot of sugar, and your blood sugar is your body can't take care of that, then it's going to get thinner, and then it's going to get that thin. And so if everything that's supposed to go through here now has to go through here, then you're going to get blockages. And then when you're going to get blockages, what you're going to end up having is you're going to have a cardiovascular event. You're going to have a plumbing issue, a major plumbing issue. And then you can have a heart attack and you can die at a very young age. And that does not have to happen. So yes, you can have an epigenetics predisposition to something that is going on. However, what you are putting in your body and also emotionally putting in your body, whether you try to or not, you can still end up causing problems. And so what we want to address is helping you to move through that on a regular basis of getting better, to be able to understand that one thing doesn't cause one thing because you're not one thing. Now, Carrie is kind of frozen, so hopefully we haven't lost her. I'll keep talking until she comes back, though. So hopefully she can come back if she can hear us. So I want to mention a couple of different books, and then we're going to talk about our membership thing first as we move forward. And I think we lost her. Hopefully she'll come back through again. I want to tell you a couple of books. One of them I have here. The other one I don't have here to show you because it was kind of an afterthought as we were pulling everything through. So the first book is called Sweet Deception. Okay. So this is by Dr. Joseph Mercola. If you follow him, he's got some good things about that. But specifically, this book is not necessarily about diabetes, but what happens is when people are dealing with that issue, then they go to artificial sweeteners. And that's something that we really don't encourage you to do. This book is called Sweet Deception, Why Splenda, NutraSweet, and the FDA May Be Hazardous to Your Health. One of the people that has a little bit of says something about this book. They have kind of an affirmation here on the book. It says, one of the most comprehensive and readable discussions of the dangers of manufactured artificial sweeteners in print. And this is by Dr. Russell Blaylock. And Dr. Russell Blaylock is a wonderful author, and he wrote a book called The Liver Cure. And that's a book that I'm reading right now. And it's really a really great book. So I'll probably go into that after I read it and give you kind of my 2 cents on that. Again, Carrie and I read a lot and just love to share what we read. So the reason I want to go through this is that the month of November is really the month that we talk about Thanksgiving. So if when we're talking about epigenetics and we're talking about the emotional connection to diabetes is missing the sweetness of life, then what a better time in the month of Thanksgiving, the month of November, to really talk about being able to help you to be able to help you to see the joy and the gratitude of life. Now, if you got our newsletter this month, you'll notice that I wrote a little bit about that from the very beginning. And the thing that I point out is that, again, in scripture, it says to be thankful in all things. And sometimes that can cause some bitterness and heartache of thinking that you've been through something very, very difficult. So why should I be thankful for it? But I want to point out to you that it doesn't say to be thankful for it. It says to be thankful in it. And what that means is that you can go through some of the hardest things in your life, losing someone, losing a parent, or losing a child, which is a horrendous kind of thing, going through job loss, going through health issues. I've been through all 4 of those things and many other things, as most of you have as well. It doesn't mean that I have to be thankful for the children that I lost or thankful that my mother and father are not here anymore. It doesn't mean that I need to be thankful for even the illnesses that I had. It does mean to be thankful in that position of where you are, so that your brain picks up on those things, because when your brain does something and you speak those goodness out in your life out, then your body follows. Your brain believes it and your body follows. And that's some thinking and some teachings from Dr. Caroline Leaf. So that might be something we can discuss in the future. Okay. So I want to encourage you, no matter what your situation is in the month of November, is to really look for the sweetness of life and look at what you have there. Okay. Carrie just texted me and said that her internet died. So we're not going to go back and redo this. We're just going to continue on because we're almost done in the first place. So the next thing, or the last thing I want to talk to you about, is that membership. So again, Carrie and I are talking about a membership. It'd just be a monthly membership that would be something that you would have a specific group. And we don't know if it'll be on Facebook or if it'll be in one of our groups specifically, that you would get us once a month or maybe twice a month. And this question did come in, that should it be for lay people or is it for practitioners? And the answer is yes, it's for anybody. So it doesn't matter which one you want. It's really because Carrie and I love to teach. We want to be able to educate you on the things that you want to be educated in. We want to be able to have some immediate interactions with you whenever maybe you're having a specific issue. So that means you don't have to necessarily make appointments, something you can discuss. If you're willing to discuss it in front of other people, then other people can learn from what you're dealing with as well. It will give you discounts on some other programs as or services that we have here at Redbird. And that's online and in person. So if you're following us and you're not one of our clients yet, know that we see people all over the United States, in 5 countries right now, too, or maybe 6. And so wherever you are, that's something, thankfully, because of the beauty of internet, whenever it works, that we can work with you on. So connect with us and let us know. Let us know what your questions are. Let us know what your thoughts are. You can post them here. We have this posted on YouTube. We also have it posted on Facebook. Don't have it posted on Instagram, but we do have the link there. And then you can private message us. There's lots of different ways that you can get a hold of us. So get a hold of us and let us know what you think. Okay. We hope to get that membership up here really quickly. So in the meantime, ask us your questions about sugar. Ask us your question about diabetes, type 2, not type 1, and then we'll go from there. So remember again that we don't try to treat, diagnose, or prescribe. Excuse me, just a minute. Excuse me. We're trying to educate you, empower you to be your own health advocate, and then walk alongside with you in all of that. So I hope this has been beneficial to you and you've enjoyed it. And we missed you, Carrie, and we'll see you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.